That was a lot to take in.
It was a great deal. It makes me just like the guy, so much more.
Who?
The people that you were discussing,
Oh, you
Dr.
like them more?
Kinsey and Dr. Monies, all the fancy doctors.
Well, here's Dr. Kinsey.
Super good guys.
He's got, the Kinsey Institute.
Right.
So, like, not only is this a current thing.
I mean, look at that face.
He has an institute in Indiana University. Do you think that they talk about any of these past things with him at the Indiana University? Like, this is the Kinsey Institute.org. They just say Dr. Alfred Charles Kinsey is the American biologist, professor, ophthalmology, zoology, sexologist. In 1947, he founded the Institute of Sexual Research in Indiana University, now known as the Kinsey Institute at Indiana University.
I don't want to go there. That's not the place that you want to go. Old Alfred Charles Kinsey.
So yeah, like he studied, he got his BA in biology and psychology, and he studied wasps. That was his thing.
He should have stuck with the bugs, I think.
He studied wasps, and then all of a sudden he switched.
Like wasps, like blue blood aristocrat.
Gall wasps.
Oh, like bugs. Okay.
Yeah, actual biology.
I see. Gall wasps.
Yeah.
Dr. Kinsey developed many of the techniques around recording and organizing data that would come into play in his later research into human sexuality. He took dozens of minute measurements on each tiny wasp and recorded the data in sheets of notes, later developing his own coding system for the information. Precursors to the detailed sex history questionnaires and recording codes he developed to use in his sex research team.
So then, 1938...
The Association of Women's Students petitioned Indiana University to offer a course on marriage for students who were married or contemplating marriage. Part of a nationwide demand for similar courses, Dr. Kinsey, popular with the students, was invited to coordinate the new course. Marriage and Family, restricted to senior and married IU students. Faced with questions from students about sexuality, Kinsey could find little scientific information on human sexual behavior that was not value-laden or based on small samples from clinical trials. His interest in the topic was piqued by a gap in our knowledge, his words, and he began collecting sex histories, first from his students and then from groups of individuals in Bloomington and throughout Indiana.
Yeah, how weird is that?
That's a little creepy,
like your teacher wants your sex history and
tell
stuff?
me how you fuck. Just break it down for me. 1940, President Wells gave Kinsey a choice to continue either with the marriage course or with his sexuality research project. Kinsey chose to concentrate on his sex research, again, crisscrossing the United States, this time to conduct sexual behavior interviews. Over the next few years, Dr. Kinsey sought out funding for his research expenses and began gathering a research team. In 1947, Dr. Kinsey became the founding director of the New Institute for Sex Research, the ISR, which published Sexual Behavior in the Human Male in 1948, and the complementary work Sexual Behavior in the Human Female in 1953. The two books were wildly popular, and Dr. Kinsey became an American celebrity mentioned in cartoons, novels, and popular music. He's the guy who put the sex and sexology. He was a great collector. During his early career as an entomologist and zoologist, Kinsey traveled across North America collecting specimen wasps and the galls from 36 states and parts of Mexico. Altogether, he amassed a collection of more than 7.5 million gall wasps that is still available to researchers through the Division of Invertebrate Zoology in the American Museum of Natural History.
So, yeah, then it goes on to talk about how he collected irises and all this stuff. Like, I wish he would have stuck to biology in that way. So he turns his attention to sexology. Dr. Kinsey was no longer ambitious, outlining the goal to collect comprehensive sex histories from 100,000 interviewees. Imagine that many interviews. Like, the interview questionnaire he designed for his research team included hundreds of questions on every aspect of human sexual behavior. While the average interview lasted a couple of hours, some could run as long as 6 hours or more, resulting in collecting over 18,000 detailed sex histories has never been matched. So, yeah, I guess he unexpectedly died at the age of 62 in 1956, a heart ailment and pneumonia. And they have like an old video here of him I watched, and it's just really weird.
That is a vicious rumor,
So-
Yetbex. It's only 5 minutes out of the month.
So this is what, this is how they frame this doctor. I mean, it just seems like, he's fine. And he's even here he has an NIH. He's got a page on NIH. So we'll show, he seems like a credible doctor, right? From what they say. He's a pioneer of sex research, according to the public PubMed Central. One of the most influential doctors,
Oh, yeah. Big time.
Did it show up? No, it's not on the stream. I forgot to add it to the StreamYard, guys. Sorry. Let me scroll up there for you so you guys can see this. So this is the NIH, National Library of Medicine. And Alfred Kinsey right here, pioneer sex research. (2003). So, he's been up there for a while. Seen as this, this doctor who's influential, and he did sexual revolution, they say, and all these, he's a good guy. He's a father, and religious and intimidating man, apparently. But so that he's really framed as this really nice guy. Let's see. What did I find about this nice guy? And these doctors are who everybody, all these ideological stuff is all based upon. And they are, so this is who we're putting so many things in the hands of these doctors. They're both dead. And I'm gonna give you a little trigger warning here. This might be triggering to some pigs, so it might not be the stream. Ophelia.com. Yep.com. So it says last updated. It was December of 2022, but this is from August 25th of 2021. So the death anniversary of Albert Kinsey, father of sexual revolution, who claimed babies have orgasms and child rape victims, they benefit. The rape victims benefit the victims, like the child rape benefits victims. Oh my God. It's a headline of an article. It's not me saying that myself. If you are just listening. So the sub right here, Alfred Kinsey was created authorizing pioneering reports of human sexology that radically upended the prevailing view on sexual relations between humans. The Kinsey research work is said to have influenced social and cultural values, not just in the United States, but across the world. And so who is it that, that's that great guy that he has his own institute? So this article goes into talking about the doctor. 25th of August, 2021 marks the 65th death anniversary. Yeah, 65th death anniversary of one of the most controversial figures in American sexology. Alfred Kinsey. On this day in 1956, Kinsey died after pneumonia had put him in the hospital. Decades of chronic heart ailment had tired him down. But before his death, Kinsey was credited for pioneering reports on human sexology and the radically upended prevailing view on sexual relations between humans. It said that to have influenced societal and cultural values, not just in the United States, but across the world. He was dubbed by the New York Times as a father of the sexual revolution. So this goes into his history a little bit. Oh, where is it? So he did in 1938. Until his death, Kinsey conducted more than 17,000 face-to-face interviews. We were just saying that. With a broad set of people, college students, prostitutes, and even prison inmates to understand their sexual experiences. His most infamous research was in 1944 interview with a sexual omnivore who had a history of having sexual encounters with men, women, boys, girls, animals, and family members. And it took about 17 hours to be recorded.
Boys, girls, animals, and what? Come on. Was animals in that sentence?
Yes.
Okay.
Men, women, boys, girls, animals, and
men, women, boys, girls, and animals.
And family members.
And family members. All right, so basically everything that is
anything
is
like, it seems like anything that was like a living thing.
Yeah. Any kind of, like, if it, if you were into fucking trees, that would be okay.
Well, it said omnivore up there, so sexual omnivore, isn't that? I don't know what
that's everything. Yeah, that's old. That's like Dopey the dwarf. Any old orifice will do for Dopey.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Sorry. The result of his comprehensive interviews were published in 2 separate volumes: Sexual Behavior of the Human Male, and Sexual Behavior of the Human Female. So you can think, like, these are definitely, I'm sure that research is, absolutely important, but it is his findings and methods employed by him to get that information is what people have a problem with.
Yeah.
I
can see why that would be kind of a sticking point for people.
Yeah. So while a set
what to my dog?
Well, a set of people hailed the American biologist for revolutionizing sexual customs, breaking taboos about the discussion of sex, and challenging centuries of beliefs about human appetites and oh my gosh, why can I not say the word?
What is the word?
Capulates.
Another
set of people considered Kinsey a pedophile.
Capacities?
Capacities. Oh my God, why could I not say it?
Yeah, I couldn't figure out where we were. Another set of people considered Kinsey as a pedophile, adulterer, attention seeker, pornographic filmmaker, and an addict whose sole objective in carrying out research on sexology was to normalize and legitimize his many illegal fetishes. Yeah, okay. Among the many shocking findings in Kinsey's reports, arguably the most scandalous one was about young children. As young as infants observing orgasms, all orgasms are outlets and equal between husband and wife, boy and dog, man and boy, girl or baby. For there is no abnormality nor normality.
That's in the Kinsey report.
That's what that's his words. There
That's
is no abnormality and no normality. So it doesn't matter. It's just, everybody, that's just fucking twisted, man. Like, that's on its face. What the fuck?
Yeah. So he has hypothesis about, infants, having the same type of thing. I don't want to like really get into all of that, but he talks about that there's no medical or forbidden reason about incest or adult child stuff. Like, he thinks all of these things that you can follow the links and you can look at the same articles that we're reading, that I don't want to read I don't want to read any more of the details of the things that he believes, but I'm just going to let you know that, you can either pause it or you can go to the article
and this is like, I don't know, man. It's not about kink shaming someone. This is fucking, there's lines, that's fucking gross to just, I don't know. Bestiality is pretty fucking hideous. And I think it's like one step worse than fucking pedophilia at this point. It's fucking gross. So I don't know, man. Anybody that gets upset at scrutinizing this person's ideology.
Yeah, no, it's just the fact is that all of this none of this was talked about. It's not talked about in his institute, in any of these, the NIH. They don't talk about these beliefs that he has. They just go with the beliefs that are, the social norm and that are accepted.
Just cherry pick his.
Yeah, they're cherry picking, exactly. And that's what I have a problem with. That's why I was like, whoa, wait a minute, this guy sounds like a great guy. Why are these other things coming up? Like, that's why it's like you can look at something and you can look somebody up and you can find a pro piece about them and you can find the complete opposite. And sometimes, like, I find that doing research, the best thing to do is look for the complete opposite result of what you want and the opposite way. Like, you need to really, if you want to critically think about something and you really want to know the truth, you got to kind of dig in the areas like where it might go against what you believe or what you preconceive to want to believe. And you kind of got to follow it and see where it leads you. And then, then you can decide. But if, like, I just looked up Alfred Kinsey, he would look like a great guy, right?
Sure.
According to the NIH, according to the, was it Illinois?
Yes. Indiana University.
Yes. But yeah, he's got some definitely some ideas and, some things that are not the norm for most of us. But there are people that do believe these things out there. So, I believe in protecting children. Like, just going to put it that way. I believe in protecting children no matter what. But this is what all the trans ideology ranges from. And so looking at the history of it, I'm like, geez. I'm like, that just makes me think about things in a completely different way, having all of the pieces to it.
Applejack, I got kicked out of Sunday school when I was 7 or 6, 8. I was little, and for asking very similar questions. So careful who you ask, man. You will get kicked out of Sunday school, buddy. Just telling you.
You'll get kicked out of Sunday school.
You will.
So I have a little thing from PBS Wisconsin, and so I wanted to, have a little bit of a break in between here, and I thought we could talk a little bit about what it is, like, when we're talking about trans and all of this, like, like how cross-dressing is, that we brought that up earlier. Oh my gosh, I forget where I was with this, but like how trans and cross-dressing and the history of that, and like cross-dressing and like wearing different clothes and stuff like that. You'll see. Oh, that stuff, just like that, sharing that other stuff is just bothersome to me. It's hard to reading some of it. It's like, so I wanted to bring up the cross-dressing. And have a little bit of a break as we go into another part of this. There we go. I'm going to mute us up and play this.
If you're a woman and you're wearing pants right now, you could have been arrested. Walking down the street today, most of us wouldn't bat an eye at a woman wearing pants or a man in a pink and flowery shirt. But believe it or not, there were laws in many countries that forbade a person from appearing publicly in clothes that didn't align with their biological sex. Oh, did I say recently? Yeah, sorry, that was a typo. I meant today. There are laws that exist to this day that prevent people around the world from cross-dressing. And before we get all revved up writing comments about it's 2018, which it is, and how this seems a little bit retrograde because it is, we should stop to ask ourselves, when did these laws originate? And why did they persist on the books for centuries around the world? Because despite these regulations, there's a long history of folks bucking the gender divide and dressing any way they please, from Joan of Arc to Pachuca fashion in Los Angeles to RuPaul's Drag Race. And if there's one thing you've learned on Origin of Everything, it's that rules and unnecessary laws are often made to be broken. So to start off this week's episode, we first have to ask, when did governments start regulating people's clothing, and why? Well, before the US was caught up in anti-cross-dressing laws in the mid-19th to mid-20th century, and long before there were similar laws on the books around the world, governments were concerned with the style and dress of its citizens. That's because of the so-called sumptuary laws across Europe that looked to making dressing, well, less sumptuous. That's because clothing has often been used as a marker of class, wealth, and distinction. Sumptuary laws aim to limit spendy-looking fashions because, first, they were considered a sign of sinful indulgence, so scandalous, and second, as more and more people got access to greater wealth and flashier clothing, European regulatory bodies wanted to make sure that people didn't dress fancier than they actually were. According to Professor Sarah Bond, as early as ancient Athens and Sparta in the 4th century BCE, magisterial bodies were tasked with figuring out what
Wear that. It look too fancy.
There is a. Oh, it's like glitching up and shit. I hope it's not like playing really super shitty for everybody.
Well, you can't wear that. You're way too fancy.
And see, that's the thing, is that like I wanted to present this part of it because I wanted to like remind everybody that, clothing is something like I'm always cross-dressing. I'm always wearing men's clothes and stuff all the time, and women get away with that. Fine. But the minute men do, suddenly it's an issue.
Yeah.
So I feel like, you know, it's this crazy, like, you know, thing that we're in, where people just can't wear the clothes that they want to wear. Like, I don't care what clothes somebody wears. And I think that, oh my God. Stop trying to open the cabinet, cat. Now he runs away. But I don't see the issue in that. I don't see the issue in men wearing and women wearing pants, and just like women wearing dresses or a man wearing a dress or whatever. I think that we need to be more free about that, and it shouldn't matter as much.
See, Gore says, I love skirts. Damn, dudes, don't knock it till you try it.
Yeah, one of my exes used to steal my skirts all the time. And what about kilts? Men wear kilts, right? Like, there's all kinds of, like, you know, all these. See, and that's the thing. I think that, you know, we are very stuck into these like norms that like we have to wear this or we have to wear this. And maybe if you like to wear like females clothing, traditionally females clothing, that, you know, you are a different, you know, like you want to be a female, but maybe you just like the clothes.
Maybe you just like pretty things.
Yeah, like maybe you just like to wear those things, and maybe you just like those things. I think that that needs to be okay. I don't think that people need to change everything of who they are. A woman, you know, can walk around in all men's clothes, and it's no big deal.
It is kind of fucked up that a girl can just like put on, you know, the husband's t-shirt and boxers and rock that shit.
And it's like, oh yeah, it's fine.
They're
it's sexy.
hot and they're sexy, you know, but a dude puts on a bra and panties and they're fucking weird, you know. That's just what the hell. But you know, it's the same thing, only different. That's the problem people have. It's the same thing, only different. That makes me scared. I'm confused. I hate you.
Like, so why is it not okay for a man to wear a woman's ball gown, but it's okay for a woman to wear a tux?
Because a ball gown has pleats, and everybody knows if you are balding, you should not wear pleats.
That's not the same thing.
Or is it white in the fall? I can't remember. Fashion sucks.
Yeah, Applejack said women can't wear pants. That's sexist. Yeah, and women haven't been able to wear pants that long, you know? Like, so like these battles of, and you know what? It's crazy. Men used to wear heels, and now it's like, oh, men can't wear heels. Why not?
It's because of the bees, the boobies.
But like, why does it matter? I mean, hey, you guys might like to wear a skirt or a dress. You might go, wow, this is really comfortable. I like the breeze.
I'm afraid that if I did it, that I would probably like it, and I'd develop a lisp shortly thereafter. I'd be like, I would come across as you know, Flamin' Steve, and everybody would be like, what happened to Steve? I mean, he got with Lucky, and now look at him.
So
liberated.
I just think that we need to think about things like, is it that people just need to be able to be free to be, you know, within their, you know, be comfortable in their bodies of who they are, embrace who they are if they can. But I think that there is also people who do have gender dysphoria. All right, I'm going to go back into this video for a little bit more, and then we're going to go into the psychiatry, the definitions of the different things, because there's a difference between transgender and transsexual.
Yeah.
There's all these different like
there's
labels.
A lot of variables. Salty says that now women wear pants to hide their dicks. You know, that's fair. That tracks. I mean, as I can tell.
Okay.
what women could and could not wear. And this could include what clothes were appropriate for funerals and also religious festivals. And their name, roughly translated in English, means controllers of women. Delightful. In some cases, clothing choices were linked directly to one's station in life, as Bond notes that Roman matrons wore stolas or long tunics as a sign of respect, whereas there were ancillas for women who were enslaved and meretrix worn by sex workers. Later, in 1157, the Council of Reims banned religious women in the Catholic Church from wearing fancy fabrics like fur trims and silk gowns, and had to do it again in the Council of Vienne in 1311, according to Professor von Seal, since apparently nuns really like to dress up long before Whoopi Goldberg and Sister Act. In his article, Fashion, Sumptuary Laws, and Business, Professor Hermann Freudenberger traces the rise of sumptuary laws from as early as a law passed by Edward III of England that outlawed the outrageous and excessive apparel of diverse people against their estate and degree, to their peak in Europe between 1650 and 1800. Because all of those European royals and well-to-do folks didn't like to see people they considered of a lower station wearing the same duds as them. And fashion still kind of operates this way today, because people are less likely to be judgmental of someone wearing an expensive Rolex if they're a celebrity flashing a watch on Instagram than if it's another regular Joe wearing a custom-made ball gown. But sumptuary laws also had a tint of xenophobia in them, since many of the fancy fashions that these European governments sought to cut back on came from foreign countries with wicked senses of style. And that's wicked in the sense of evil, not a Bostonian wicked sense of style. And sumptuary laws continue to be geared towards limiting people's fashion choices well into the 17th and 18th century. Okay, so laws limiting fancy clothes started hundreds of years ago, and some of these laws were gender specific, although they weren't aimed specifically at preventing people from dressing across gender norms, but more at limiting the amount of stunting committed by medieval nuns and newly rich people. So our next question is, when did laws about cross-dressing specifically enter the books, and why? Sociologist Claire Sears' book Arresting Dress, Cross-Dressing, Law and Fascination in 19th Century San Francisco traces the rise of these laws in the US back to the mid-19th century. The first of the cross-dressing laws she found dates back to an 1863 law passed by the San Francisco Board of Supervisors that made it illegal for a person to appear in public in a dress not belonging to his or her sex. And this was part of a larger wave of public decency laws that continued to sweep the nation until around World War I. Sears notes that the cross-dressing ban was part of a larger set of laws that criminalized public nudity, indecent exposure, lewd acts, and immoral performances. They were passed in over 40 U.S. cities between the Civil War and World War I and covered a surprisingly broad terrain of activities, including performers who dressed in drag, transgender people, and people who wore gender-bending clothing of all sorts. But why the sudden rush to legislate cross-dressing? People dressing in different kinds of gendered clothing wasn't exactly hot news beginning in the 19th century. Think of women who crossed the gender divide to join famous battles like Joan of Arc, Sarah Edmonds, a Union soldier in the Civil War, or the Legend of Mulan. Women also pretended to be men to get ahead, like Dr. James Barry, an Irish doctor and soldier who was born Mary Ann Bulkey in 1789 before assuming the name of an uncle in order to pursue an education as a physician.
Oh, I have to add me back in there. So this clip just like really showcases the history, right, of this. Like, there's been many laws. There's been a lot of like controversy about back and forth about whether, you know what I mean, you should be able to wear the clothes of the opposite gender in public. It's been going on for a long time. It's not a new thing. It feels like it's like, you know, really fresh and in our minds now, but it's been going on. This is not something that we've solved.
It is kind of ironic, though, that they try to restrict people way back in the 1800s. How did that work out for San Francisco? Salty ass.
Yeah.
Well, it's a little less than strict about those things now in San Francisco. They evolved. Some fucking weird ass shit.
Yeah. And Irish women dress as men to fight along with their men.
Only if you're a master.
But in the
tells
tent,
you.
nah, they got their rocks off as wide as they could. Oh my God.
Yep, X. If your master tells you, that's fine. Progressive.
All right, I'm gonna put this back up here so we can play some more of this.
And Ellen Craft emancipated herself and her husband William by dressing as a white man, pretending William was her servant, and traveling north out of slavery in first-rate trains and hotels. But these 19th century laws were geared towards eliminating people who didn't dress according to gendered expectations from public life by criminalizing different forms of dress. And in the 20th century, these laws saw a new resurgence as cities began to swell and social attitudes began to rapidly change. In the 1950s and 1960s, police officers often enforced these cross-dressing laws when they laid raids on gay and lesbian community hangouts in order to arrest, harass, and discriminate against patrons who were congregating there, which was the case during the 1966 Compton's cafeteria riots and was one of the inciting factors of the Stonewall riot of 1969. And around the same time in Buffalo, New York, butch lesbian women could be arrested for wearing less than 3 pieces of female clothing. I'm not entirely sure how you would begin to even count something like this. And it wasn't until attitudes began to rapidly change again through the careful activism of gay and transgender communities that these laws were eventually repealed or thrown out altogether in the 1970s. So, how does it all add up? While anti-cross-dressing legislation isn't enforced in the US today, there are still restrictive dressing laws that exist around the world, and most of these laws seem to fall disproportionately on women, whether it's laws dictating religious dress in Saudi Arabia, or a ban on miniskirts in Uganda, or France's infamous and widely covered burqa ban. Although all 3 of these examples have quite disparate histories and aren't aligned to say that they're of the same piece, but rather to point out that government interference in clothing options isn't quite over yet. And even though cross-dressing laws in the US are off the books, that doesn't mean that questions of dress code regulations and propriety aren't still flaring up across the country today, such as should women be forced to wear high heels if it's part of a uniform? And do dress codes that limit distracting clothing actually help students learn, or do they just give school administrators one more reason to tally up demerits and detentions while
So that's something that drives me crazy, is that girls are told that they can't wear a certain like spaghetti top, like a tank top, because they might distract the boys at school. That is absolutely ridiculous. The boys need to learn how to control themselves. And if a shoulder being exposed is that, like, then they need to learn how to control themselves, or they're not going to be able to control themselves as adults in society. Like, that's just wrong. Girls shouldn't, like, obviously you should wear something that's appropriate, but like, really, you can't wear a tank top in school because a boy might be distracted because they need to learn how to control themselves. Like, what do boys do in the tribes that live in the wilderness where the women don't wear a tank top at all?
They're not in the titties.
What? I'm just saying, like, they should just be able to control themselves. All right, let me I think there's like a
targeting students based on their own biases about what's appropriate. So while we're always told it's what's on the inside that counts, it seems like folks have a lot of anxiety about what's covering our outsides and how that aligns with our social standing, political choices, and identities. So what do you think?
good. All right, now I should be unmuted. So I wanted to give a little bit of history and background and make sure that we have the appropriate terminology when we are talking about these things. Because when we're talking about trans, we're talking about let me see. Hang on. Let me pull this up for you. Gender dysphoria, which is actually this is a medical condition that people have. All right, here we go. And this is psychiatry.org. And gender dysphoria. The term transgender refers to a person whose sex assigned at birth is the sex assigned by a physician at birth, usually based on external genitalia. Does not match their gender identity. This is when they have gender dysphoria. So it's similar to when a person who is anorexic, they see themselves as overweight and and fat, but they really aren't. So they're seeing themselves in the wrong light. They feel like their body doesn't match who they are. And some people who are transgender will experience gender dysphoria, which refers to a psychological distress that results from an incongruence between one's assigned at birth and one's gender identity. Though gender dysphoria often begins in childhood, some people may not experience it until after puberty or much later. So people who are transgender may pursue multiple domains or of gender affirmation, including social affirmation, and that means like changing their name, their pronouns, legal affirmation, changing their gender markers on one's government issued documents, medical affirmation, which is like pubertal suppression or gender affirming hormones, and or surgical affirmation. So that's a vinoplasty, a facial feminization surgery, breast augmentation, masculine chest reconstruction, etc. Of note, not all people who are transgender will desire all domains of gender affirmation, as these are highly personal and individual decisions. So I wanted to bring this up because I thought that this was good, how they have expert Q&A here about gender dysphoria. And they go into the fact that transgender is a non-medical term that has been used increasingly since the 90s as an umbrella term describing individuals whose gender identity, their inner sense of gender, or gender expression, the outward performance of gender, differs from the sex or gender to which they were assigned at birth.
Uh-oh, what is Applejack asking? He's asking one more fucking time, and somebody better answer him.
Uh-oh.
God damn it, you fuckers are going to stop ignoring me, and I need confirmation. I don't know what he's trying to confirm. I keep scrolling back and back and back. Okay. So has anyone ever heard of gay and lesbians within the LGBTQ plus community trying to kick trans community out of the clique?
Yes.
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 I was listening to someone tell me some shit like that.
I can speak firsthand on that. I am actually part of that community. I have been part of that community for a long time. I'm not active within that community as much as I used to be. But yes, that is something that has been going on for a long time, actually. The lesbian, gay, and bi community wants to separate from the TQ plus community. And the reason why is because of the extremes that the community is doing with gender reassignment surgeries and going as far as they are with the pronouns. Because they're coming up with new pronouns all the time where you can identify as fae and moons and the people identifying as like animals and
dogs.
Cats and dogs and all this stuff, and that's not what is a traditional trans person, a transgender, or somebody that actually has gender dysphoria is not the same as all of the people now that you're seeing with all these different new non-binary and all these ideological aspects. It is completely different than the traditional, like when it was just the lesbian, gay, and bi community. I'll tell you that was a very traditional community, and I remember before trans became part of that community, because that they allowed them into that community as part of it, and they changed the flag from just a rainbow to having the triangle that comes in, and they want that triangle erased from like a lot that. And this is not something that's new. This is something that I remember talking about in like 2008, 2009. That's like, I was heavily into the community then. But I hope that answers your question.
Aggravated progressive identifies as cat food. And Yepek said, don't take this the wrong way, but if someone identifies as Fae, the world should grant them magical powers. It only seems fair. Or they should have grant us magical powers because they're Fae, right? I don't know. I don't know what they all mean. There's so many names now.
There is so many.
It's like, I'm a squirrel and you identify as a squirrel chicken. I'm a swamp chicken from the squirrel zone, and I don't wear men's clothes anymore because I only wear sandals and a small string.
I've never fit into like one like category. Like I've always been kind of like the I don't have dysphoria at all.
Well, I have an amazingly bushy tail because I'm a squirrel now.
Okay. I don't have dysphoria. I feel like, I'm a female and that's how I was born and all of that. Can you help him, please? But I've always I've never fit in with like the gender, the norms or whatever. Like I've always just kind of been like the tomboy or whatever, tom girl or whatever so all right, so some people who use this term do not consider themselves as matching a binary gender category or either strictly male or female. In addition, some terms such as gender non-conforming, gender queer, all this, there's all kinds of new. It's hard to keep up because there is so many different like pronouns that people are using and ways that people are using stuff, and they're changing the language. Is what I think a lot of people are having a problem with. Is that it's a whole new thing for so many.
Yeah, because you're changing the language in even not so much like each person naming their thing, whatever it is, and now this, I want you to call me this. Okay, fine. How about if I just call you by your name? And then they get offended that you don't know what their other pronoun was. Like, how about we just, I'm Steve and you can be, what your name is, and I'll call you that. And then we won't have to worry about gender at all. But people are like so far beyond that. They're just like offended immediately if you don't ask, or if you don't have the knowledge, prior to meeting them, like, oh, they like to be called this or whatever. Like, come on, man, we're just fucking people.